Have you ever really stopped to think about how you teach someone to read? I don't mean a new word, I mean the whole shebang, from absolute zero. Well, today we're going to unpack the hidden science behind turning what looks like meaningless squiggles into a whole universe of meaning. I mean, it's a really fascinating puzzle, right? Take a word like map. For you and me, it's easy, but for a true beginner, that's just three random shapes on a page. You can't ask them to sound it out if they don't know the sounds. You can't even start if they don't recognize the letters themselves. So where on earth do you begin?
So to make this real, let's just imagine our learner. Let's say she's a young Arabic-speaking child and she's never seen English before. Her entire world of reading is completely different from the one we're about to show her. This isn't just about learning a few new words, it's about learning a whole new system for how language works. And the challenge here, it goes way deeper than just memorizing a new alphabet. As you can see here, in Arabic, you read from right to left. A lot of sounds that we use all the time in English, like the P sound, they just don't exist in Arabic. So we're not just swapping out symbols, we're essentially asking the brain to rewire its entire approach to text. This is it. This is the fundamental question for any teacher trying to build literacy from the ground up. With all these barriers, what's the very first spark you can create? Well, you don't start with a word. You don't even start with a book. You start with just one sound and one single letter. The first step is all about making the abstract concrete. And to do this, teachers use this really powerful multisensory technique. The goal is to lock a letter and its sound into the learner's brain using as many different pathways as possible. It's not just about seeing it, it's about experiencing it. Okay, so let's take the letter S, for example. First up, visual. The student sees it on a big card. Simple enough. Then, auditory. They hear its pure sound. Not its name, S, but the sound it makes. S, like a snake. Next, kinesthetic. You get them to use their whole arm to draw a giant S in the air. And finally, tactile. They trace that same shape in a tray of sand. By hitting 4 different senses, that letter is no longer just a squiggle. It's an experience. It has a shape, a sound, and a physical feeling. Okay, so our learner now knows a few individual letter sounds. This is kind of like having a handful of Lego blocks. They're cool on their own, but the real magic, the fun part, happens when you start clicking them together. This next step is called blending. So the teacher lays out the letters, but she doesn't say the word. She just points to each one and makes its pure sound. So you hear m, a, p. Right now, they're just 3 separate, totally distinct islands of sound. Now, watch this. The teacher starts to physically slide the letters closer together, and as she does, she encourages the student to connect the sounds, to make the transition between them smoother and faster, so it becomes ma. She's visually and audibly closing that gap between the sounds. And then it clicks. Map. Map. This is a massive aha moment. 3 sounds that meant nothing have just transformed into one single meaningful word. For the very first time, the code has been cracked. Our learner isn't just making sounds anymore, she is actually reading. But just when you think you've figured out the system, English loves to throw a curveball. What happens when you run into a word that just refuses to follow the rules you've worked so hard to learn? Well, these are the rebels of the language. This slide here explains the problem perfectly. A word like cat is phonetic. You can sound it out. K, e, t. Makes sense. But now try to sound out the word the. T, h, e. That doesn't work. These super common sight words have to be learned in a totally different way. You basically have to memorize them as a whole shape, almost like a company logo. You just have to know it when you see it. So the student is learning sounds, she's blending, she's memorizing sight words, but how does the teacher actually know if any of this is working? Because just asking, do you understand, is, frankly, useless. This is where the real science of teaching comes in, with 2 very specific kinds of questions. First, we have what are called instruction checking questions, or ICQs, and these have absolutely nothing to do with the content. They are purely about the instructions. So after telling students to trace the letter S 3 times, a teacher might ask, how many times? This just checks if the student knows what to do. Second, you have concept checking questions, or CCQs, and these are all about the actual content. The teacher might hold up 3 letter cards, S, A, and T, and ask, show me the one that makes the S sound. This directly checks if the student has actually grasped the knowledge. So here's the crucial takeaway. A good teacher never ever asks, "Do you get it?" Instead, they design these really precise questions that force the student to prove their knowledge. It lets the teacher see exactly what they know and where the gaps are. It's all about getting evidence, not just an assumption. So now our learner has all the essential tools. She can identify sounds, she can blend them together to make words, and she can recognize those rule-breaking sight words. It's finally time to put it all together. Let's just quickly recap her toolkit. She can identify the sounds for letters like C, A, and T. She's mastered blending them together to make a word like cat, and she's memorized the visual shape of sight words like I, see, and the. Every single one of these skills is a vital piece of the puzzle. And here we are. I see the cat. This is so much more than just a sentence. This is the destination. It's the culmination of every single step we've just talked about. Those two sight words, I and the, are recognized instantly. And the phonetic word, cat, is decoded by blending the sounds. A world of symbols that used to mean nothing has officially been transformed into a world of meaning. She is reading. You know, it's this incredibly complex process that most of us just completely take for granted. But behind pretty much every simple skill, there's a hidden architecture, a real science of learning. And it really makes you wonder, what other abilities that feel totally effortless to us are built on some secret, complex foundation that's just waiting to be explored?